We'll be talking about how you guys, as Tahis, can maybe get better gigs, a better job, better projects, by actually doing something that these guys do fairly frequently, and that's speaking and maybe blogging, basically being like an influencer in the developer community, I'm guessing. No, you don't like to be called influencers, no Instagrams.
Overused word, probably. Yeah, no fit tees or booking info.
Damn, you might add that to your profile.
Okay.
So we'll basically be covering that. Before we start, just so you know who you're obviously listening to, I'll introduce myself first. So I'm Ivan Brezberkan. I'm the founder of Netokracija, which is kind of like the TechCrunch of the Balkans. I've been writing about you guys and these guys for around 10 years. Jesus. But also talking to a lot of developers of how they enjoy writing and also holding a few classes about writing for developers. As for my panelists, if you guys could introduce yourselves, that would be awesome.
Yeah, Devaris Brown, product manager for developer experience at Heroku. Been doing this for like 20 plus years and been making a decent living out of it. As you can hear, I'm American, speaking in split.
Didn't notice.
I didn't notice. I've been working on my accent. So, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, myself, I'm Kalyan Dikshit. I do work in a company called Wild Labs as a security developer, but also volunteered in Mozilla for the past 6 years. So I'm a Mozilla tech speaker, so I go around speaking about projects that we have been doing and working on. And I have been doing this for the past 2 years, probably, yeah. So cool. I'm like quite new for this compared on the panel, so yeah.
Yeah, cool. And Ivan?
Myself, I'm Ivan Knezovic. I'm coming from RBA. I'm a head of development. I'm in banking 16 years, around 20 years in IT.
Cool, awesome. And of course, you usually go speak and blog and so on.
I'm starting.
Yeah, that's good. Before we go with the tips and tricks from your experience, I'd like just to know, what do you guys read or follow when it comes to like experts in the area? Do you read blogs? Do you follow podcasts? Who, as far as the developer community, influences yourselves?
So for me, it's kind of a OG in the game, Scott Hanselman. So I used to work with him at Microsoft. And the reason why I follow him is that he has a great balance between his personal life, his professional life, and then whatever his passions are at the moment. So, when I was an evangelist at Microsoft for I think like 4 or 5 years, working with him and seeing how he navigated that space, it was something that was really inspiring. And it showed me that your public persona can actually lead to opportunities. But just every day, like I have a news feed that I read from Hacker News every single day. I don't really follow blogs anymore. It's just Twitter and Hacker News every single day.
Do you go to the Hacker News like homepage, or you do RSS? Because I've tried doing RSS from Hacker News.
Yeah, it's terrible.
No, it's like
terrible. I actually built a client for my phone, so I had to learn Swift.
That's nice.
So one of those things. But yeah, that's
humble brag. Cool.
I mean, mine would be like open. Like we do have something called thehackernews.com, which is a cyber security, because I do work as in cyber security field right now. I go through it every day, and I also follow Scott Hanselman because he's a great guy. He does a lot of great interesting stuff, and he's the guy that you want to follow because he can help you out in many things. And I also follow some other security guys called Mike Ali from the Intercept. He writes great articles on how security has been used in a way which is not supposed to be used. And I do follow some of from Ars Technica and also Wired.com, few of the articles based on the subjects. So mostly I'll be hanging around in Reddit and Twitter. So Reddit has become a great place to have some free time for, because you could see all the memes floating out on technology and everything. So that's a go-to place for me in the morning.
Cool.
Open.
Ewan, yourself?
For me, I have so many interests that I really follow everything, but in aggregation way, I like LinkedIn lately. It's really picking up in the last, I would say, year, really with the nice articles, I suppose. So it's
I mean, you can definitely give a local and regional perspective on this subject. Obviously, in the U.S. and worldwide, like having a lot of developers active and blogging is quite normal. In Croatia and in the region, it's not really like that, right?
But lately, I would say 1 year, it's really starting to develop. It's
So people are starting to write and be active.
more and more. Yeah.
Cool. What do you guys think that actually makes like good developer influencer in the industry? Is it like writing really in-depth articles? Is it being very frequent in the writing? Is it having the maybe different perspective because you can give something that no one else is giving? What would you suggest to people?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all of the above, right? So one of the things the reason why I follow certain people is that they have a particular niche that I'm interested in. And so they have a consistency of output too, right? And so the good thing about that is that it keeps the audience constantly engaged. The other part of it is like if you vary your content, right? So that you have long form content that's really in depth, like how to, multi-article tutorials, those types of things, or even the quick hitters, right? Like, I just found out how to do this thing, or I just learned about this thing. I think those, on top of your personality and letting that shine through, is really what makes a good developer influencer, right? Because it just shows that, you have a life and you are a human outside of a computer screen.
Yeah, not just the code.
Yeah, not just the code.
So for us back in India, because I'm from India, so we do have a lot of technical events happening every weekend. Like every weekend we do have a meetups happening or technical conferences or events happening around the city. So I used to be attendee, like I used to sit in that phase of manner where I was like 4 years back, I was an attendee for most of the conferences. But because I used to volunteer with Mozilla, we used to work on few products that Mozilla, I did work on Firefox OS a bit, then I did work on connected devices, which are not present right now. So that kind of helped me out to, I used to be a very shy person to speak about technology in front of people, like even 3 or 4 people. But right now I do go to conferences and speak in front of hundreds of people. So I would just say that, when you attend these conferences, you develop a relationship with the attendees or other people, which kinds of helps you to be in the developer community. And sometimes we did some hackathons together, like a random guy approaches you in a hackathon and you do some product. And so we did that. So we were in a smart city hackathon and there were like 3 other random guys that we did something. And IBM offered us like a initial angel thing saying that we would like to do that, but we were like, nah, it is just for fun for us. We don't want to be in that part. So I think it is like, the interest that grows on with you, like, what type of work that you will like to do more. So it really helps you out. People always come to you and ask like, I did see your talk or I did see your work on so and so. How about we collaborate or we could do something like a workshop or a talk locally. So
You mentioned speaking and like becoming a speaker at these events. Obviously, you're speaking here and in Croatian region, but for a lot of developers as well, it's very hard to go on stage, either in a panel or do a talk. What has helped you personally? Like, what have you done that's helped you and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I start small. All right, it's I came from, I wasn't always in tech. And so I did like stand-up comedy at one point in time. I'm not telling any jokes on demand. That's the worst thing you can ever do. But one of the things that they would tell you is constantly like work your routine. So you start off in front of friends and family, you go to smaller clubs, then you get to bigger venues, that type of thing, right? And so for me, it's, to get comfortable speaking, especially about a technical topic, right? Like, I'm pretty sure everybody in this room is a much better developer than I. And so I used to have this fear of getting in front of people and doing demos and, talking about a technical topic, because the one time that I did that, like very early on, it was like the guy who made the technology was in the room. And he was like, that's wrong. And I was like, ah! So, so for me, it was just one of those things where you constantly have to workshop and test your talk out. So talk in front of friends, talk in front of your coworkers, do like a brown bag at lunch, go to a local meetup like Kalyan was saying, and then maybe speak at a smaller regional conference. And then you get to be on big stages like this at some point. You just constantly have to build that mental muscle to get over your fears about speaking, especially on technical topics.
What would you, based on what you said that you had that experience with, like doing the demo, having the feedback, right? I'm sure that wasn't as easy to go through, but like a lot of developers that I've talked to have told me that I'm not going to do any meetup or anything, for example, talking about a technical topic, because the project isn't finished, we haven't launched it, we're not sure if we want to talk about it, I'm not comfortable with going on stage. Do you think that's a valid point of view, or they should like just be open and like say, okay, we're still working on it, that's okay?
I will say this, like these are my opinions alone, so I think that frame of mind is some bullshit, to be honest. Just because it's like everyone can learn, all right? It doesn't matter what stage you're at, if you're at the beginning, if you're at the end. As you are developing a project, like maybe you found out that there's this like weird configuration hack that you had to do to get your Kubernetes cluster set up that you've searched on Amazon or Stack Overflow for a couple hours and couldn't figure it out, right? Like somebody else could benefit from that. Like Callian's from Mozilla, like built on open source, built on community. And so you have to have those conversations wherever stage that you're in. And so a lot of developers, they're scared because they want to finish deliver a finished product, but I mean, newsflash, there's no such thing as a finished product, right? And you're always going to be evolving. You're always going to be iterating. So you have to share your learnings so that you can help other people, not make the same mistakes that you did.
Do you have something to add maybe to the original question also?
I mean, I did start, I did apply for like 20 conference in the year of 2017. I got only like 3 conferences accepted, and one of the conference was like, my first speaking experience was in a hackers conference in Europe called SHA. So the number of attendees are 6,000 people over there. So we'll be living in a forest for a week, and it is everything new to me because I have never did camping in my life because we don't have so much open area back home. And also, I used to love hackers conferences like DEF CON and everything, but when you become a speaker in a hacker conference, you have this tension, right? All the demos should work. You shouldn't look stupid because people do more than you know. So I was speaking on a topic like integrating Tor for IoT, and I didn't know that Tor kind of sent out a blog saying that, these are the guys who are coming to this conference speaking about Tor, and there was this guy who have literally written the Tor, and I was speaking before him. After the talk, he said, "You did a great job." I was like, "Okay, thank you." I was like, if I missed anything in that point, it's going to be like, embarrassed for the entire life. But luckily, the demo worked as it should be, and it was all really great. But there are some times that, it becomes a hectic process because you have your own work, and some people do work as a developer advocate, which is really cool for them. But I do have my own work, which is on other stuff that I do, like reverse engineering, proprietary images for like smaller companies, and I do speak a lot. And so I am like, there's a cycle of things like attendee, a speaker, then again coming back to organizer and everything. So it's a huge process of things, and it takes a lot of time, and people sometimes, they have to understand as a speaker, you do also have a personal time. Some people would be like so aggressive that, if you don't answer them on time, they're going to be like, this guy's trying to show off, or he's been rude to people. But in the background, we have our own works or personal life and things to be taken care of. Even though as a developer, you only work 8 hours a day, but there are many things in your life that you also wanted to work on, or you want to help others people or not. So
Yeah. Even again, going back to the like local community and the regional community, what would you advise developers that are like not really comfortable again with going on stage, maybe of shift dev? I know that like other conferences have had problems where they have like calls for speakers and so on, and while they get a lot of attention from abroad, locally it's a bit of a challenge.
Speaking, writing is just like any other work we do in our life. It's just practice. So you have to start doing it in order to perfection it, yeah? I would maybe show a bit different angle here. So we see now the gig economy really going on in Croatia. A lot of young developers really going entrepreneurship really doing nice stuff, but they don't have brand. So when they are working for big tech companies, they have a brand that this tech company is doing. Alone, they're nobody. So they come to me and they say, yeah, I'm a good developer. Great, but I don't trust you, I don't know you. So this is something that you build with a lot of writing, a lot of speaking. So you bring your own brand. Your name, your surname is brand. So my really biggest takeaway from this conference for the developers is to really start doing it. You are doing it, we are doing it with a lot of youngsters also. So this is something that there's a good community here, meetups, really nice meetups. Go there, speak, 10 minutes, try it.
Yeah, we've definitely seen, I had a panel on the topic of freelancing at one of the faculties in Croatia in Varaždin, obviously, and it was packed. Like, of course, everyone wants, like, every student wants to try being a freelancer, but when they, and it was like 2 hours of a panel, so it took a long time. But anyways, when they asked the questions, you could just feel that they don't get it. They'd like all the benefits of being a freelancer, independence, et cetera, but they don't understand that it really takes a lot, and you do have to sell yourself, brand yourself, position yourself, right? And that brings me to my next question. So obviously every company has like a leader. It can be the founder, it can be the CTO, the CEO, whoever it is. Do you think that it's necessary for the top technical executive to try to be a thought leader in the industry, or is it something that he can or she can delegate to someone, right?
I think it's a team sport, right? If I look at a lot of the companies that I personally would want to work for, you know, if I wasn't already at a great company like Heroku and Salesforce, they have a great team community around and culture around engineering practice. So that's like Etsy, Stripe, Airbnb. Like those are the blogs that I read because, you know, they come up with amazing things that are open source that, you know, they have teams of people that are just building these amazing tools, right? And so for me, I think while it's important to have a figurehead out there, CTO, CIO, whatever, to go out there and do thought leadership to bring in business and do business development, I also think the other side of it is that you have to foster a culture of sharing and blogging and branding yourself as an engineering organization. Because people, much like this crowd, they want to come work for that, right? And it's really, really, it's interesting. A lot of people don't resonate with Salesforce's products, right? But people resonate with Heroku because they're out in the open source community and everybody thinks about Heroku being this open source company. Well, that goes to Ivan's point is that's the brand that we put out. It's like we want to be the place where anybody can come and build their dreams, and we have open tooling to do that. That's our brand. That's our brand positioning. And I feel like, you know, every other team, engineering team, should do that, and it shouldn't be the responsibility of one person.
I just listened to a podcast recently there was a guy, a senior executive from Indeed, the job platform, and he said, like, look, yes, we are basically a job board, a job platform, but they have this whole inside Indeed platform where they communicate some other side about what they're doing, why to work with the company, etc. Even we obviously had the CTO of RBA on stage. What's your perspective? Should just like Enklade go to every conference and speak, or can we make it a team sport for Croatian companies?
He's a good speaker, so he has to. Anyway, yeah. But generally, I think, and this is what you talk about, is like employee branding. Without it, if you do good stuff, nobody knows about it. Nobody will come to see it. Yeah. So what are we doing now in RBA is trying to really to make a pool of people who are able to come to conference, not only Enklade, but me and the rest of the guys, tech leads, to really start preaching what we do. Because without it, it's really, really hard to empower your company on the market. Yeah.
And how hard is it actually to get people on board to start for the first time for a large company like yourselves? Like, because you're, again, some companies like Heroku maybe have been doing it for some time. You're now setting it up, trying to get it. What are you looking forward to in that sense?
First, we try to do a democracy. We'll do it. Nobody answered, so you, and you.
You do have to
So you
nominate
try
people.
it, you do it. We are trying to do it with some companies to teach us this, because it's a skill. It's a skill as any other. So we're really trying to kind of have a roster of, I don't know, 10, 15 people and then try it out. Some of them will be good, some of them not. So,
Yeah, I think for us, and places I've been at and been an engineering leader, is that you make everybody in the company become technical. Not necessarily engineer, but technical, right? And so, Twilio's famous for this, right? Where they literally everybody who gets hired at Twilio has to make an app. Doesn't matter if you're an admin assistant, doesn't matter if you're in marketing or if you're the CTO, you have to make an app on Twilio within the first 2 weeks, and you have to go give a presentation, all right? And so I agree with democracy sometimes, but dictatorship isn't bad.
For this use case, I'm guessing.
Yeah, this is
It's a very
benevolent dictatorship. Yeah.
So, the great thing about Mozilla is that most of the products that people use as a community, we are the guys who take care of it. So we do have a very close work with Mozilla employees also. So they are very open to the community members. So we do have a large community base in India. Almost of thousands of people work in different departments of Mozilla products like the Q&A and Firefox browser for Android, desktop, Linux and everything. So it becomes easier for people to know, when you do something for, for an ideology, so you stick with it for more amount of time. Because the most people ask me, why did you be in Mozilla for the past 6 years? So because I did like the idea of you can even pitch your own idea for the people, and sometimes there have been instances where people did pick up the idea and they did implement it in the Firefox itself. So your idea has been used by millions of people, and they value your opinion and your ideas and everything. So it makes people also to work more and more. And in terms of open source, it really helps out, because we do have a project that we are working on now called Common Voice. So where it's a purely community-oriented project right now. And so it is for the building voice assistants for different languages. Because right now, if you see, we do have a very low level of languages being used. So you can only use a particular voice assistant only in English, which becomes a huge barrier considering people come from various diversities with various languages. So we are trying to build an open source voice assistant where people can build applications on top of it. So we are opening opportunities for people who have these great ideas, but the resources are quite normal to it. So most of our work is quite open source. So we do have a lot of people speaking on these different things, and it really helps, and also helps because we do have a lot of engineering students right now, where they are helping out on many things. So when they work in a top company, they know how what is the work structure, and I feel that as a student, students need to learn the ethics of a few things. You develop a product, so you need to know what is the use case of this product, not developing it because you need to do it. So you have an idea of what it does, how it does, what type of data it takes because of the new rule of GDPR. And we being the second most population, every company would like to have a place in India. So every company is we want to be in India because we have around 600 million people using internet on a daily basis, basically. So it's like many countries combined, so they want the data, but there's a lot of issues in that.
Cool. Lightning round with under a minute left. What would be the first step you would suggest to a developer that's now thinking, okay, fine, I'll start speaking or blogging or something. Give me my first step. What's the first step?
I would say pick up what you like, because some people like to blog, some people like to speak. So, it depends. If you like to blog, yeah, blog and share it so people can, use the same thing in your work and something. Or if people like to speak, try to. So whenever I speak at conferences, I do follow this rule. Whenever before my talk, I speak in front of the mirror, so that I could see what mistakes I've been doing. As David said, try to start locally, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of local meetup groups. So that is where you could understand how people are reacting to your topic. Yeah, I mean, how you're speaking and how you're interesting for the topic or not. So
So you use the platforms that you actually like and
Yeah,
start local.
yeah,
Cool.
sure.
Awesome. Ivan?
Take your wife, boyfriend, dog, whatever, and talk 5 minutes on a subject.
Start
if you can
really-
do it, if you can do it, then next step, meet up or something.
Everyone
like
can do that, definitely.
Yeah, pick a topic, pick a problem that you just solved, and just talk about it. Every time, get into a routine that, set up a personal routine that every time that you solve a problem that it took you more than 20 minutes to figure out, write about it, talk about it, practice, right? And like Ivan said, it's just practice. Over time, you'll just get better at it.
Awesome. Great. See, it's not that hard. Anyway,
Not that hard.
thank you very much to my panelists. Please, a big applause.